Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, we'll be talking about the next round of winter weather across the northern mid-Atlantic states up to about southern New England. We've got all sorts of advisories and even some winter storm warnings that have been put up. We'll be discussing that in detail, as well as the weather going into the weekend and a look at the long range. That's tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And back to the watches and warnings map. We have winter weather advisories up for Long Island, New York City, New Jersey, northern New Jersey. Central and South Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania are now under a winter storm warning that was put up by Mount Holly. I'll get to that in a moment. We have winter storm warnings up for just about the whole state of West Virginia into a portion of southwest Pennsylvania. Advisories cover much of the rest of the state, back through Ohio, and you can see advisories stretch all the way back across the lower Great Lakes, on up through Iowa, and then northwestward up into the Dakotas, also southwestward into Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Alabama, even here in northern Georgia where I am, and in western North Carolina, western Virginia, as well as northeastern Virginia, including Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. So just want to look at some of these forecast maps. Here is a tighter view of the winter weather advisories that are up in New Jersey and Long Island and back through Pennsylvania. And you can see the counties here that are in the winter storm warning in central New Jersey, back into southeastern Pennsylvania. That includes Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. under winter weather advisories, New York City under a winter weather advisory. And the forecasts for snow are just a little bit, I don't know, they're kind of odd, I guess. Let's look at what Mount Holly is doing. And they have 4 to 6 inches for much of southeastern Pennsylvania and eastern Pennsylvania going up to Allentown, and 4 to 6 inches for the counties that they're responsible for, from even some of the northwest counties up to 3 to 4 and 4 to 6 all the way down into southwest New Jersey. Amounts cut down a little bit along the South Jersey coast to less than an inch because there might be a little bit of rain mixing in. Kind of a tough call there. 3 to 4 inches up in northern Delaware, 1 to 2 in central Delaware, and then on over into eastern Maryland. I don't have the other maps up to the west, but I just wanted to show these here. This is National Weather Service in Upton, and they're going anywhere from 2 to 3 inches from Long Island to northernmost New Jersey, Westchester County, and then straddling the other side of the line of New Jersey and New York State into Orange County, and then amounts drop off to under 2 inches as you go further north up in the Hudson Valley and along south coastal Connecticut, where we do not have advisories up there. I am about 50% lower in this general 2 to 3 inches area that I have. I'm sure there probably could be local amounts that could get up to 4, but I was really hard pressed to figure out why they went as high as they did. This is my final call, and frankly, I spent much of the afternoon trying to find out some reasoning behind why they did what they did. But you know what? The forecasts are now all on the table. So it's just a matter now of let's see where this all takes us as we head on into tomorrow, which is the day of reckoning, I guess we can call it, with regards to what's going to happen. Now, here's the satellite loop of the U.S., and there are three separate systems here in play. You've got a lead trough that's moving through this evening. There's actually some snow shower activity around on the radar. The stronger trough that we're watching is the one that's back from the western lakes into the Dakotas. That's beginning to swing around to the southeast. And there's also some Gulf moisture that's coming up from the south that is going to get involved with the coastal low that is going to form out of all of this. And the radar has some patchy snows. This is mostly light stuff that you see in Pennsylvania and up into northern Virginia. Snow aloft in the Hudson Valley and over Long Island and New York City. back into western Pennsylvania, a few places where the snow's actually reaching the ground, and that extends down into Kentucky. And in northeastern Tennessee, precipitation tailing off right along the Georgia, Carolina, Tennessee state line. WPC, these are 3-day precip totals, so this covers the event in the east. You'll notice that there's a quarter to a half an inch of liquid being indicated for southeastern Pennsylvania and for much of New Jersey, but it doesn't quite get to New York City. Also, quarter to a half and even some areas of a half to 3/4 in parts of West Virginia, and that goes down the Appalachians. Heavier precipitation in the west, particularly the coast of the Northwest down into Northern California with some 2 to 3 inch amounts. Again, this is for the next 3 days. And WPC, on their snowfall probability maps tonight, they kind of beefed it up a little bit. So we'll take a look here and go a little close up, and you'll see that they now have an 80 to 90% chance of at least 2 inches of snow for central and parts of southwest Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. Also a 95 to 100% chance of at least 2 inches in western Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio, down into West Virginia. When we pop up to the probability of at least 4, you have high probabilities in the mountains of southwest Pennsylvania down into West Virginia, also along the lakefront of Lake Erie in Ohio and back up into northwest PA. There's a 40 to 50% chance being indicated for southeast PA into central Jersey in that area in blue. But the numbers do tail off. I usually, from a standpoint of a forecast, I like to use that 50% line as the place that I would put 4 inches. I did my early call before this map came out, so I don't really want to go add it in now. I'm just going to leave things alone for now and just sort of verbally indicate that in these areas that there could be the possibility that some areas could wind up with about 4 or so. So let's just look at some of the models for this evening. We'll start with the new GFS, which just came out. Really hasn't changed very much, and most of the models are only giving about 2 to 3 inches out of this at most. There's a couple that might get up closer to the 4. What's happening is that the coastal low is going to take over all the energy, and it's well out to the east. So that, to me, says that we might limit some of the snowfall. The one thing I guess we should be careful about is the fact that we do have this wind coming in from the northeast into the cold air that we have in place, and that might fluff up the snow a little bit, especially tomorrow afternoon. So it's something that we're just going to have to watch. If I've got to amend my numbers, I will. The storm system pulls away. Very cold air on the backside of it. We got another big high coming down into the Dakotas with very cold air that is going to be into the eastern part of the United States for Saturday. And for Sunday, I think Friday night will be dropping down into the low and mid-teens. Saturday during the day, probably no higher than low 20s for highs, perhaps. Maybe somebody gets up to 24 or 5 in eastern PA to southern New England, especially on the southern end of that. And then as we move through the weekend, we're still going to see cold weather on Sunday as the high is in eastern Kentucky. The core of the cold air will be moving out on Sunday, but it'll still be chilly. I think highs will be in the 20s to around 30. Also, one thing to note is the fact that the wind is going to be picking up later tomorrow afternoon, and particularly for later Friday night and during the day Saturday and even into Sunday. It remains on the windy side, especially across New England. Nothing, I think, that's going to require advisory criteria, but it's going to make the cold feel even colder. This Arctic air mass is the last of the bunch. We're going to see that move out, and we'll start to see moderating temperatures as we move through next week. I'm not seeing excessive warmth, though. We are going to see temperatures go above normal, but I'm not seeing it going off the wall as far as warm temperatures are concerned. There's some complications down the road that we'll have to consider with some cold highs coming down from Canada into eastern Canada, and some of that might bleed down into New England and maybe even as far south as the northern mid-Atlantic states later on next week. So we're going to fill in all the gaps tonight regarding this system on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. That's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then.